Saturday at 9.
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. The man Presidents Reagan and Bush branded an American hero was portrayed in court today as a liar and a thief. This was the final day of testimony in the Oliver North criminal trial. For 2 months, the prosecution has tried to prove North lied to Congress about his Iran-Contra wheeling and dealing. In his defense, North introduced documents suggesting Mr. Bush and Mr. Reagan were far more involved in secret Contra aid efforts than they've indicated. Our coverage begins with CBS News law correspondent Rita Braver.
A small band of boosters gave Oliver North a warm reception today. But in court, the atmosphere was cold as the prosecution presented devastating testimony indicating that North may have lied on the stand. First came the man who sold North a family car for $8,000 in cash. North claimed he'd paid with money he kept at home in a steel safe. But used car salesman William Howell testified that North made only a down payment when he bought the car and promised to pay the balance with a loan from the White House Credit Union. North did pay up, but there is apparently no record of any loan. The testimony bolstered the prosecution's claim that North got the money as a kickback from Contra arms merchant Richard Secord. Next came National Security Council Financial Officer Mary Dix, who said that for a time North was always in need of petty cash. I could hear him yelling, "Mary, Mary," he would need cash to go home. He didn't have money for gas, so lots of times I would just give him my own money. But Dix said that suddenly North's cash problems just stopped, strengthening the prosecution contention that by then he was siphoning money from the Iran-Contra initiative. Then lawyer Willard Zucker, who set up Swiss accounts for Iran-Contra funds, testified about meeting North's wife Betsy in Philadelphia. Subject, creating a secret trust fund for North's children. It was direct refutation of North's claim that Zucker was merely setting up an insurance policy to be paid only if North were killed on his hostage mission to Tehran. Finally, it was all over. Prosecutor John Kecker, the government rests. North attorney Brendan Sullivan, the defense rests. Judge Gerhard Gazelle told the jurors that they will be sequestered next week when they come back to begin their most important job, determining the outcome of this case. But first, there will be closing arguments. The last chance for the prosecution to describe North as a crook, for the defense to portray him as a hero who became a scapegoat. Rita Braver, CBS News at the federal courthouse in Washington.
The secret documents show that President Reagan, far from being disengaged, was clearly in command of a systematic effort of questionable legality to keep the Contra war going after Congress passed the Boland Amendment barring U.S. aid.
This is a president that is engaged in the policy and in the implementation of the policy. And it's a different president than was portrayed in both the Iran-Contra hearings and in the Tower report.
Mr. Reagan maintained while in office he had clean hands.
I am being portrayed as having behind the scenes violated the law and done all sorts of shady things to try and violate the Congress restriction on aid to the freedom fighters. And it just isn't true.
But the new evidence shows him directly involved in a secret quid pro quo deal to keep the war going. In 1985, Mr. Reagan learns Honduras may end its critical support of the Contras. In response, he approves economic aid and CIA support, even though the CIA cannot legally help the Contras.
He was right on the edge of the law. It was either illegal or certainly inappropriate.
Then Vice President Bush has insisted all along he knew nothing of efforts to get around congressional restrictions.
And I was not aware of, and I oppose any diversion of funds, any ransom payments, or any circumvention of the will of the Congress, the law of the United States of America.
But new questions about Mr. Bush's role are raised by a draft memo which outlines the quid pro quo deal. John Poindexter writes in the margin, "We want VP to discuss with Honduran leader Roberto Suazo." Within weeks, Mr. Bush goes to Honduras to tell Suazo the U.S. will expedite $110 million in economic and military aid. Then, in a top-secret bail directive, Mr. Reagan approves $4.5 million in CIA money for Honduras. The vice president, it says, concurs. Would such actions, if known, have brought down the Reagan presidency?
I would argue that a violation of this amendment does not rise to the level of a high crime or misdemeanor.
Was it establishing a precedent that could eventually be so destructive that it
inhibits the effective operation of foreign policy in this country, yes.
Mr. Reagan once warned aides that if the story leaked out, he planned to fund the war using money from third countries. They'd all be hanging by their thumbs from the front of the White House. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Washington.
After weeks of give and take, President Bush and congressional leaders announced agreement today on a tentative budget for the fiscal year that begins in October. This budget provides less for guns and more for butter than the president wants. But in keeping with his read my lips pledge, the budget contains no new taxes. At least nothing new that is called a tax. CBS News White House correspondent Leslie Stahl reports now on how the deal was done. Leslie?
Dan, partly by relying on economic assumptions that almost everyone says are unrealistic, partly by agreeing to leave the really tough decisions for another day, and partly by compromising, President Bush and Congress were able to make a bipartisan budget deal.
But in announcing the plan in the Rose Garden, no one was jumping up and down with glee.
And this is a first manageable step, and this budget agreement is the first such agreement reached ahead of schedule and not framed in the context of crisis.
It does not go as far and do as much as any of us would like.
This is not an heroic agreement.
It is a first step.
President Bush claims he's kept his no new taxes pledge, but the agreement does call for an increase of $5.3 billion in what the Democrats call taxes, what Mr. Bush calls revenues, specifics to be determined later. As for Mr. Bush's hope of cutting the capital gains tax,
in my view, the capital gains tax, which was advanced by the administration, has two chances of passage by this Congress, slim and none.
both sides won some and lost some. The Democrats agreed to slice so-called entitlement programs by nearly $7 billion, most of it out of Medicare and agriculture subsidies. The president agreed to less defense spending than he wanted and more domestic spending. That effectively kills his flexible freeze plan.
We've crafted a kinder and a gentler budget than the one that was originally presented to us by the Bush administration.
To get the deficit down to the required $100 billion, both sides accepted the president's rosy economic predictions. The budget document itself acknowledges that if Congress's assumptions were used, the deficit would be $20 billion higher.
So all in all, it's been another game of smoke and mirrors in Washington, and Wall Street is not impressed.
The budget negotiators did not specify which spending program should be cut and which one should get more money. The bipartisan spirit so celebrated here today was achieved by both sides agreeing to be vague. Dan?
Leslie, thank you. A couple of government reports today provided both support and doubt for President Bush's optimism about the economy. The Labor Department said a slowdown in cost increases for food and energy helped hold wholesale price inflation to a moderate 0.4% for the month of March. But the Commerce Department said demand for foreign goods widened the trade deficit by more than 20% in February to $10.5 billion. Still to come on the CBS Evening News. Connie Chung on a hot civil rights controversy over Cool Hand Luke. And Richard Schlesinger on warm weather, a bad bug, and big trouble in maple syrup country.
Nice to have a good friend meet me at the airport. My new Regal. It's a car I can trust. The way GM makes these new ones, reliable, dependable, gives me the peace of mind I need. So take me home, friend.
GM is the only American car maker to offer a bumper-to-bumper warranty for 3 years or 50,000 miles on every model.
Now a single glass of water can give you as much soluble fiber as this plateful of oat bran muffins. That's right. A single glass of water has as much soluble fiber as 2 bowls of oatmeal. A single glass of water with a spoonful of Metamucil. Metamucil, the natural fiber for regularity. Surprised? Don't be. Your doctor knows ounce for ounce, Metamucil has 5 times more soluble fiber than oat bran. Today's high-fiber diet includes the right foods and Metamucil every day.
And every day, more and more people are discovering what Metamucil is really all about.
Natural soluble fiber Metamucil. It can make a daily difference in your health.
Where does it hurt?
Here.
For indigestion and gas, your medical answer is Extra Strength Malox Plus. Its doctor-recommended formula neutralizes more than any leading antacid. Ask your doctor about Extra Strength Malox Plus.
The FBI joined in the search today for leaders of a drug smuggling cult that slaughtered at least 13 people in a Mexican border town. Police call them El Padrino and the Witch. El Padrino, the godfather, is a 26-year-old Miami native said to be obsessed with black magic. His companion, an outstanding college student who apparently led a secret life of voodoo and violence. Ron Allen is covering this bizarre case.
Among the 6,000 students at Texas Southmost College, Sarah Aldrete had already generated some attention. She's described here as a striking and athletic woman who'd been honored for her academic achievements. But no one has seen Aldrete in class since police began digging up bodies on a ranch near Matamoros, Mexico. 13 human sacrifices intended to protect a satanic drug smuggling cult in which Aldrete allegedly took part.
It shocked me so much because I heard it on the radio that I went off by myself and cried a few tears.
The woman that was on campus here is not the woman that's described.
Police believe Aldrete led a double life, college student in the U.S., cult member across the border. A search of her Matamoros house uncovered blood-stained walls and voodoo items. She is said to be the girlfriend of Adolfo de Jesus Costanzo, who police say is the cult's godfather.
I don't know what her role was in the witchcraft or the voodoo or the black magic. I'm looking at her role in the organization of the criminal part of it.
At this point, police say Costanzo and Aldrete have fled this area, probably together, and that confessions by the 5 men already in custody make the couple the key to this case. Investigators say they've uncovered information about cult worship in Costanzo's past, but why this bright, young, promising college student allegedly became involved remains a mystery. Ron Allen, CBS News, Brownsville, Texas.
Terror, violent death, and a statewide alert today after a series of shootings at a ranch, a winery, and 2 homes in California's wine country, north of San Francisco. Officials said a winery worker with a love for guns went on a shooting spree, killing his wife, his mother-in-law, and 3 others before he fled with his 3 young daughters. Police tentatively identified the suspect as Ramon Salcido, a forklift operator. He was believed to be driving a Ford sedan, heading south, armed and, quote, extremely dangerous. A federal jury in Los Angeles today placed equal blame on the federal government and the pilot of a small plane in the 1986 collision with an Aeromexico jetliner that claimed 82 lives. A judge later upheld the verdict, which absolved Aeromexico of any blame. The collision occurred in clear skies as the Aeromexico DC-9 approached the airport. A single-engine Piper slammed into the jetliner's tail. The jury blamed the government, which oversees the Federal Aviation Administration, an air traffic controller, and the private plane pilot.
I used pressure-treated lumber, and I still have $800 in water damage. How come?
Even treated wood needs Thompson's Water Seal protection.
This patio was supposed to last for years. Now I have $1,200 in damage. Why?
Your concrete wasn't protected with Thompson's Water Seal. Thompson's penetrates into wood, brick, or concrete to form a barrier water can't get past, even when driven by 98-mile-per-hour winds.
Let it rain. This time I use Thompson's, a great defense against repair expense.
Thompson's, the first name in lasting protection.
These days, Americans are eating foods that are low in cholesterol. Or are they? Cooked in butter, even these aren't as cholesterol-free as they could be. That's why there's Butter Flavor Pam Cooking Spray. It has a buttery flavor, yet adds no cholesterol. So you can pick foods that are low in cholesterol and keep them that way. Pam, because how you cook is as important as what you cook.
Did you know that certain kinds of diet frozen foods get 40, even 50% of their calories from fat? Fat! Eat smarter. The one you can trust is Le Menu Lifestyle. Every serving is under 300 calories, helps you limit sodium, cholesterol, and is low fat. The only thing we didn't touch is the taste. Le Menu Lifestyle. Eat smarter.
A team of French and Swiss researchers said today that they too will now attempt to produce nuclear fusion at room temperature. They are the latest to join the race to check and prove claims made by University of Utah scientists on this potential source of inexpensive, plentiful, and clean nuclear energy. CBS News correspondent Jerry Bowen brings us up to date on the spread of fusion fever.
Electrochemical cell.
The question in laboratories the world over this week has been, is it soup yet? Has anyone else been able to cook up the incredible Utah cold fusion experiment?
It's being enthusiastically pursued, I would say, by 1,000 laboratories in the United States.
I hope that your fever in this area, fusion fever, stays high.
In this one hectic week, 7,000 scientists rushed to Dallas to hear Stanley Pons explain his work. Only 1,700 had been expected.
Early on, we didn't have very much money, so we chose Rubbermaid here, which worked out quite well for the water bath.
Utah's experiment did use a Rubbermaid dishpan, along with a car battery and a jar. The battery generated electricity through so-called heavy water in the jar. Deuterium atoms in the water were forced into a metal rod made of palladium. Some scientists think the palladium has special characteristics which pack the atoms very tightly, so tightly they supposedly fuse and create more energy than was put in. The Italians, French, and Swiss announced they're trying to duplicate it. Scientists in Moscow, as usual, claimed they'd already done it 20 times at least. Georgia Tech is rechecking its numbers, but researchers in Texas and the University of Washington say they've been partially successful.
If it turns out that our data is garbage, people are going to say, well, they're just graduate students, you know, they're learning.
But skeptics continue to warn against rushing to judgment.
You know, is this the discovery of the century, or can it be explained in much less interesting ways?
No matter, since the word broke, the price of palladium, the metal used in the experiment, has soared $30 an ounce. MIT rushed to patent theories on how it all works after this man, one of their scientists, said he knows, but he's not talking. And the University of Utah, where it all began, has a growing list of Fortune 500 companies wanting a piece of the action.
This has been a very exciting week for people in fusion.
Very exciting. But it's not quite soup. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Good friends and good food, but my stomach aches. My party. And Mylanta 2.
Double strength Mylanta 2 with nearly double the acid neutralizing power of any leading regular strength brand.
Because my life takes Mylanta 2.
Introducing new Vanish Foamin' and Johnny Clean.
I've got you under my rim. Vanish Foamin' clings deep in the heart of me. It cleans and freshens every part of me. New Vanish Foamin' under my rim.
New Vanish Foamin' clings to dissolve hard-to-reach stains. It makes cleaning your whole bowl easy.
New Vanish Foamin' under my rim.
So fresh!
Gets under the rim to make cleaning easy.
Oh, he's not in? No, I'll call back. Thanks.
You hung up 20 seconds ago. So why is AT&T still charging you? MCI, we are the better long-distance company.
Gas pain, bloating. GasX has the strongest, fastest relief ingredient. Painful gas is like beer bubbles. Add the leading antacid. Add GasX. Only GasX gets rid of the gas. The strongest, fastest reliever for gas pain and bloating. GasX.
A battle is brewing over another controversial Bush administration personnel choice, even before he's been officially nominated. William Lucas is the man Attorney General Thornburg wants to head up the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. But CBS News correspondent Connie Chung reports Lucas's opponents are raising serious concerns about his qualifications. Connie, welcome and good evening.
Thank you, Dan. The policies of the Civil Rights Division were under fire throughout much of the Reagan administration. Now, the selection of William Lucas, whether he's the right person to be this nation's civil rights enforcer, is raising questions about the Bush administration's commitment. His admirers call him Cool Hand Luke. But just this week in Michigan, his local chapter of the NAACP voted overwhelmingly against his selection.
I know everything we have done in this community in regards to civil rights. Bill Lucas has been conspicuously absent.
Lucas built his career not in civil rights, but in law enforcement, as a New York City police officer, FBI agent, and later as 4-term sheriff of Wayne County, Michigan. Bill Johnson is a Lucas supporter and former aide.
Bill Lucas has never been the kind of person that became involved in civil rights activities with any great degree of fervor. Instead, Bill Lucas chose to lead by example.
But when he was sheriff, a court found conditions at his county jail reprehensible, finding him responsible for what it called a litany of evils. He was held in contempt. Another court ruled that he failed to require discipline and appropriate training after it was discovered that officers had beaten an inmate. Critics say his only experience in civil rights enforcement was a year-and-a-half stint in the early 60s. According to his resume, he was an attorney at the Justice Department at that time, when in fact he worked as a paralegal. And as a lawyer, he has never tried a single civil rights case and has no court experience whatsoever.
Oh, it's very, very disappointing. Mr. Lucas does not have the legal credentials for the job.
Lucas's supporters say all today's criticism is strictly politics. He was a Democrat until 1985, when he jumped to the Republican Party to run for governor of Michigan.
Bill and I have much in common. We share the values of hard work, family, God, and love of country. And he was a Democrat and switched, and so was I.
Some will say that I cannot be elected governor.
Bill Lucas.
That the barriers of ignorance and bigotry are still too strong.
Lucas took a bad beating in that election, but made some new friends.
Anyone with this kind of a record and this kind of ability, I would be proud to be at his side.
At least one prominent black leader is also at his side. Civil rights veteran, Mayor Andrew Young.
This is whom the president has chosen, and I think we ought to give him a chance.
In fact, President Bush has yet to formally nominate Lucas. Both the Justice Department and the White House say they stand behind him. But as opposition mounts, Lucas defenders fear, Dan, that they're losing the battle before it even begins.
Connie, what's the holdup?
Well, the White House says that it was waiting for the FBI report, but that came out on Tuesday. It went directly to the White House, so that if the nomination occurs, it should happen in about a week or 2 weeks. In the meantime, President Bush, Attorney General Thornburg, and Lucas are all not talking.
Connie Chung, thank you. Case worth watching.
Thank you.
The Communist Party leader of Soviet Georgia resigned today. He was replaced by the local KGB chief. The party leader had accepted responsibility for ordering Soviet troops to break up a pro-independence demonstration last Sunday. 19 people were killed in the resulting clash. Israeli troops wounded more than 20 Arabs in the occupied territories today during wild protests over yesterday's raid by Israel on a West Bank village. The International Committee of the Red Cross said 6 Arabs were killed and dozens wounded in that pre-dawn raid, which turned into a street war. And the Red Cross protested the incident, charging the Israelis fired indiscriminately and without restraint.
My favorite city in the world. Old San Juan.
Let me show you the rhythms that echo through the night. Let me show you a chef who knows more delicious secrets than stars in the sky. Let me show you a culture 500 years strong, and how this ancient city can capture the heart forever.
Puerto Rico, the shining star.
Hey, Tippett, whatever it was, it's dead.
Very funny, Flutie. I always do this to my shredded wheat.
Didn't your mother tell you not to play with your food?
I learned this from my mother.
I knew that. I did.
Now, Bisco shredded wheat is great no matter how you eat it, because it's nutritious whole wheat with no added sugar or salt.
Hey, Flutie, you better try spoon-sized shredded wheat. I wouldn't want you to strain yourself.
You've been searching for it all your life. Something rich that doesn't have a billion calories. Something sweet and non-fat with no added sugar. Introducing new Yoplait Light. Fresh, creamy yogurt and real fruit, lusciously blended with just a touch of NutraSweet and only 90 little calories. New Yoplait Light. The light at the end of the tunnel.
Troubled times tonight for leaf peepers and pancake eaters alike, and all because of a mild winter and an insect smaller than a flea. Richard Schlesinger ends our week with that story.
They've been collecting maple sap this way for generations. Feeding the giant boilers that will turn it into maple syrup and sugar. Usually the woodsmen collect rivers of sap, but this year it is almost as if nature is conspiring against them.
I don't think that any farming you work as close with Mother Nature as you do with sugar and making maple syrup.
And how's Mother Nature been to you lately?
Well, she's been a bit stingy.
Stingy with the rain and snow and cold weather maple trees need to produce sap. Syrup production has slowed to a trickle. But the weather isn't Bob Hourigan's only problem. His farm is threatened by an infestation of insects called pear thrips that have already defoliated 500,000 acres of Vermont maple trees. Some of the first thrips in Vermont were discovered on Bob Twitchell's land. He had to give up making maple syrup and turn to logging.
What was that decision like for you? Was it a hard one?
Very hard. Trees have been my life, all my life.
Maple syrup is a $12.5 million industry, but the effects of the trouble here go far beyond the breakfast table. Maple trees actually bring in about $100 million each year to this small state.
Every autumn, it's the maple's technicolor explosion that lures hordes of tourists here. They spend about $80 million, but the thrips like the leaves as much as the sightseers do. Scientists are waging war against the thrips, studying soil samples to trace their path. But the thrips are advancing, and so far it's a losing battle.
The saving of the maple tree. I think that's really what the bottom line is.
Those are pretty high stakes.
Those are very high stakes.
A lot of people in Vermont make maple syrup.
Doug Harlow learned to make syrup from his father and hopes to pass the tradition on. But like the other syrup producers, hammered by thrips, drought, or unusually warm weather, Harlow is afraid that his boiler, with its billowing, sweet-smelling steam, will become nothing more than a museum piece. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Putney, Vermont.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather. Now, Bob Schieffer will bring you the news as usual tomorrow, and then Connie Chung will be here Sunday evening. I'll see you Monday. Good night.
PGA field competes at the stunning Harbortown Golf Links in South Carolina. The MCI Heritage Classic tomorrow on CBS Sports.
This is CBS.